Another EdTale is coming up, the interactive format that you have already learned about. The next episode anticipates what awaits us in the next panel when we talk about collaboration and global exchange. May I introduce Florence now? She's a professor, she's a digital enthusiastic and a virtual character. Here we go.
Together, we redefine learning. The challenges and chances of today's world of digital education are very diverse. What we need now are innovative ideas and projects that point the way to our future of education. EdTales are an interactive storytelling format created by the Federal Ministry of Education and Research. It illustrates the variety of digital means and tools for actors in higher education. EdTales presents 4 very different characters and adventures that aim to inspire you to think digital education even further. Let's meet Florence. She's a professor and digital enthusiast. She has been a professor for educational science for 5 years. Since her appointment, Florence has been especially occupied with the challenges and opportunities of digitalizing academic teaching. In her courses, she loves to experiment with digital media. The students in Florence courses, however, are very diverse. They have different levels of competence, practical experience, and previous knowledge. Accordingly, students perceive the technical and content-related barriers in different ways. Florence courses have a high dropout rate, which is very disappointing for everyone involved. Florence has an idea how to tackle this challenge. She wants to offer her students an adaptive digital learning system that allows them to prepare for her courses by evaluating their previous knowledge using AI methods. Florence discovers such a tool and agrees to cooperate with a university in Spain. Although the tool is meant to help students prepare for courses, it may also pose a fundamental challenge to the diverse group of students. While using technology helps to reinvent learning, many issues arise in providing access for all students. The gap between those who have ready access to computers and the internet and those who do not, either because of social or geographical barriers, has become much more apparent in the past month. Florence has to make sure every student gets access to this digital learning experience. What are your ideas on how to enable access to digital education?
Yeah, what I am so excited about is the variety of different perspectives we get on the subject digital education or higher learning, and mostly affected are like students, of course. And now we have another student voice. It's Adrestan from Romania.
Hello everyone, my name is Andrei Stan, and I'm a 4th-year student at the Technical University of Cluj-Napoca in Romania. We had like a social dynamic developing where we could group up and work on projects, work on different courses, where we could just get together and socialize and also learn, which was quite great for a lot of us. And most of the professors actually were keen on helping us due to the fact that they most likely felt they had to make up for the lack of face-to-face interaction with us students. So a lot of them actually provide us with a lot of different materials, a lot of work aspect related materials, and a lot of additional courses so that we could learn better and learn more. I'm convinced that there is much more to experiment regarding online studying. However, I trust that this will actually lead to many good things once access to these benefits is given without discrimination to all those who might need it. And I wish that in the future, this digitalization will actually take into account the accessibility of every student involved in higher education. And I also hope that this wave of digitalization will encourage universities to collaborate on a European level, thus raising the overall knowledge of all of our students across the continent, because together we can do many different things, and these would work out great if everyone collaborated and helped each other out, especially in these difficult times. Thank you, everyone. I wish you all the best, and bye-bye.
Thank you very much. The next panel reminds me of the TU Berlin, of the Technical University Berlin Hackathon Challenge we learned about at the beginning. It's called Building Bridges. Here in a few seconds we talk about collaboration and global exchange and which solutions are helpful. The moderator of the discussion will be Alexander Knoth. It's just the right man. Alexander is pretty interested in international virtual collaboration and responsible for the digitalization activities at the German Academic Exchange Service. And dear Alexander, now I ask you to take over and welcome. You're on stage.
Yeah, thank you very much. A very warm welcome from Berlin, from our main stage at the EUREF campus. As I said before, my name is Alexander, and I'm very delighted to moderate this panel discussion addressing the question how to unlock the potential of digitalization for collaboration and global exchange, finding solutions together. Hackathons, teleteaching, blended learning, virtual exchange, there are many approaches to strengthening collaboration and global exchange. Of course, there are still some obstacles that need to be solved. For instance, how to get students engaged also emotionally, as the Commissioner Gabriel this morning already pointed out. How to develop intercultural awareness and soft skills to gain a better understanding of the other. Finally, how can we achieve scalability? Meaning to set up longer-term collaborations to overcome borders and truly form communities of practice. I'm very happy to welcome my outstanding panelists, and I'm looking forward to our discussion. Tina Marie Monelyon, she, after 12 years in making strategy and brand management in India and China, Tina moved back to Germany in 2020. She currently teaches at Mainz University of Applied Science and conducts research on open educational resources at Leuphana University in Lüneburg. This is part of a research project which developed out of an online hackathon, so very happy that you are here with us. Bart Verswijvel. Bart is a Belgian educator and expert trainer. He works as a senior pedagogical advisor for European Schoolnet in Brussels. He is the pedagogical lead of the Future Classroom Lab, the concept of a flexible learning space. He also coordinates the EUN network of Future Classroom ambassadors and emerging network of future classrooms. Bart believes in the joy of learning. I think that's very much important, and his favorite quote is, "Store your knowledge in friends." Jana Tokaryk. Jana teaches English and French at a secondary school here in Berlin. She's an enthusiastic learner and passionate about global exchanges, both virtual and face-to-face in real life. As an eTwinning ambassador, she works to connect classrooms in Europe and beyond. Sarah Guth. Sarah teaches English as a foreign language at the University of Padua in Italy. She is the president of UNICollaboration. In that role, she is part of the consortium that is leading the EU's pilot project Erasmus Plus Virtual Exchange. We both share the enthusiasm for virtual exchanges and cross-campus collaborations in the international context. So thank you all for being here with us today. Now I'd like to start our conversation with a round of short statements referring to your background and to your perspective on global and European interinstitutional collaborations. And I'd like to ask you, Tina, would you like to start, please?
Thank you, Alexander. And hello from my living room to all of your living rooms, kitchens, and I imagine potentially also offices. Thanks so much for joining us today for this panel discussion. As Alexander briefly mentioned, just to give you a bit of background, I've worked with colleagues across 6 countries internationally in Asia, Latin America, Europe, and that way of collaborating was for us, at least in international brand management, very common. But I'm here today to talk about something which is much more exciting and fun and that is leveraging collaborative concepts at the university level, for instance, like a digital hackathon. As Alexander mentioned, I participated in one in May. It was my first hackathon ever, so also my first digital hackathon, and it was a big experiment, and I cannot recommend it to you more highly. It is really, it's a lot of fun, and you learn so much. I didn't expect anything at all, and I met 5 strangers which became team members in a matter of 36 hours. It's about 2,160 minutes. They became team members and now even colleagues. So it's really an amazing format. But I do kind of want to caution that collaboration is a powerful tool, not only for innovation, but also for teaching and learning. And we're lucky that now the digital collapses time and space, which gives us much, much more opportunity to collaborate. But it's an opportunity, and we have to leverage it wisely. It is not a solution on its own. So whether for innovation or teaching and learning, we have to be conscious and aware of how we leverage the digital to enable more collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tina. Thanks for sharing how a hackathon can be a true catalyst for new projects and new collaborations. So what's your perspective, Bart?
Well, my perspective, hello, Alexander, and
hello
to all of you out there from my home here in Belgium. Well, first of all, I want to say that I started my professional career as a secondary school teacher, and I have been there for about 30 years. It's always nice to tell this, so that I really belong to the community of teachers, and I'm always proud to say this. And after this period, I joined European Schoolnet, and I would like to introduce that organization very, very briefly. Maybe you know it, the European Schoolnet is an organization of ministries of education in Europe and beyond. And the aim of the organization is to develop strategies and actions to innovate and transform education and to support schools and teachers. And of course, you can imagine that also we came into action immediately after the start of the crisis. Now, you saw this type of support everywhere, which was mainly, I would say, in the first phase, technical support. Maybe you were there when at your institution they were discussing video conferencing systems and bandwidth and devices. That's a start to support teachers, but soon after this we also saw other elements coming to the foreground, like well-being and psychological issues of learners and involvement of teachers. But then there's another thing, and that is more, I would say, my field of work. These are pedagogical issues, and I think there's lots of things to be done there as well. Because the main question, according to me, is how do we, given all the limitations and the forced changes we have now, ensure that the quality of learning, and how do we, for instance, prevent that education becomes, in a way, traditional again, with students that we have to put on assigned seats in the classrooms. And when we see this type of setup, teachers start lecturing again. It's the same practice they have in many cases when they organize live events through video conferencing. And this is something that is of concern for me. How do we engage students, and how do we prevent that learning and teaching becomes individual and traditional again? And I think all those challenges that we see here in this hackathon, they are parts of the answer to this question. There is not yet an answer to this, but this is something that we need to work on collaboratively. So we promote as well, that's a final part for me at European Schoolnet, an ecosystem for education that goes beyond the traditional view of the solitary teacher that only interacts with his own students. And so all the projects that we run have this dimension of connection and built-in communities where learners and teachers build bridges. And I think in these circumstances, this is some element that we really need to stress and bring to the foreground, even though we are operating in very difficult situations as we have now. But I don't need to convince you about that, I think. I wish all the panels and the teams out there, good luck for their hackathon.
Thank you very much, Bart. I think you mentioned really important points. It's about new pedagogical concepts, and it's about the question, the quality of learning. So we really need to turn our system upside down and really transform our traditional concepts into digital learning environments that are highly engaging students, pupils, teachers, and lead to new communities of practice. So now I'd like to hand over to Jana. So what's your perspective?
So I'm a teacher in Berlin, which means that I'm actually still in school, but only partly, because we have a few classes who are online, and then we have a few classes that are actually in school. So we are practicing a mix. And I'm very happy to be on this panel because I'm a big fan of the European Schoolnet, and I actually participated in one of their events last week with Bart. So I'm a very happy lifelong learner, and I'm always online and enjoy online courses. And this also led me to my eTwinning project, because I'm an avid eTwinner, which means that I'm in contact with teachers from all over Europe, and we do projects together with our students, which means that we learn from each other, and that we also support each other in developing new teaching material, which means that we can use our energy in our field of expertise, but we can also collaborate and develop new strategies and new products, and also make the children and the older students live collaboration. So I have participated in many eTwinning projects that have accompanied students all over the year, and this is really what we are aiming for, to have them live and to have them participate in authentic communication. For example, in eTwinning projects that are centering on interdisciplinary topics like cheese. We have explored cheese through chemistry, biology, English, German, ethics, and IT. So I'm really also focused on trying to bridge the gap between subjects, because I believe that this is where we have to start. So collaboration has to start between the subjects, because we tend to put everything into boxes. And I believe that it is important also to communicate between scientists and avid language learners. And sometimes that is where we have to start. I also feel that in the eTwinning community, I sometimes find it more easy to collaborate with teachers in Europe than with the teachers who are next to me, because we are all keen on collaborating, and we would like to see change, and sometimes this is not as easy in school. So what I would like to emphasize is that curiosity is key, and we need to bridge gaps that are interdisciplinary, but also national and international.
Thank you very much. Curiosity is key, and collaboration is also key. So that's why we are all here together on this panel. Thank you for mentioning the point that virtual exchange could open up new opportunities for interdisciplinary collaboration and discovering new subjects. I think this is also a great chance here. So finally, Sarah, would you like to share your thoughts with us?
So thank you for having me on this panel. One of the benefits of being last, and also of being the second panel today, is that you get to hear what everyone else has said and really tap into it. And so I'm just going to shift what I was going to say a little bit, that I think, for me, in many ways, the focus is on community. So as Alexander said, I teach English as a foreign language, and I think it was natural in the field of language learning, intercultural learning, and to some degree business as well, that when the internet made it more and more possible for teachers to connect students across borders, that we were some of the first people to do that, because it fit naturally kind of into the kind of work we were doing. But what happened was that very much people were doing it on their own individually in very much a bottom-up grassroots kind of way. And so several years ago, a group of colleagues and myself came together to create this organization called UNICollaboration to try to start creating a community of people who were engaging in this activity for many of the same reasons that have already been said, right? So that we can learn from one another. And I liked what Jana said, that yes, very often you have more in common with your peers working in different countries than your co-teacher sitting next to you in the next office. Because it's a mindset, right? If you're interested in virtual exchange and cross-cultural collaboration, then you see education in a certain way, right? You see the benefits of those cross-cultural and interdisciplinary collaboration. So I fully agree with you there as well. And I think I just wanted to point out that it's interesting that in K through 12, so primary, secondary education, there's there were pen pals for many years, then there were e-pals, and then the EU invested significantly in this amazing project, which is eTwinning, and has been hugely successful. And even my children, when they were in primary school, participated in eTwinning. And yet, to a certain degree, at the higher education level, there was always this assumption that students would get some kind of international or intercultural experience by going on Erasmus mobility. And to all of us who work in higher education, we're aware that the number of students who do not go on physical mobility is quite high. And so we saw virtual exchange, so using digital technologies to really connect people to people and to have them work together on teams and collaborate with one another, was not in any way a substitute for physical mobility, but if done right, and there's a focus on pedagogy that we'll talk about later, does give them an opportunity to have an international experience. And so it wasn't until 2018 that the EU decided to invest in virtual exchange at the higher education level with Erasmus Plus virtual exchange. And so my organization, UNICollaboration, is one of several organizations that is make up the consortium that has implemented Erasmus Plus virtual exchange. And we've been able in 3 years to give these kinds of opportunities not only to students in formal higher education contexts, but also students in non-formal learning contexts. So about well over 25,000 students have had opportunities to engage in these kinds of experiences. So just to end that, through this process of Erasmus Plus virtual exchange, we've also created a community of teachers, of practitioners, of universities, of students, of facilitators, of people. And I think the big change for us and where we would like to see it keep on going in the future is that this community continue to grow.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sarah. I think it's very important that under the conditions of the pandemic, gaining an international experience can't be longer taken for granted. So we need to use the potentials of digitalization to create immersive learning environments, bringing different student groups together, mixed classes, shared projects to work together on teaching and learning artifacts and concrete products. We will talk about that a little bit later when we come to the pedagogical concepts that can be used. So also you mentioned UNICollaboration as a, so to say, European milestone for creating a community of practice, bringing the enthusiasts together and reaching out to those that aren't yet enthusiasts. So very important for us. I'd like to move a little bit forward to our first topic that was already mentioned before on the panel, the question of digital skills and digital competencies. The level of digital skills and competencies amongst all age groups is a crucial factor. Where lies the potential of collaborative formats to enhance digital competencies, especially digital literacy? Bart, would you like to go first?
Yeah, of course we need to be all convinced that we need to rethink how we organize learning, and it is quite normal that many teachers want to stick to the old paradigm because entering something new is always something that does not give all people confidence, and we see that as Jana mentioned, teachers who are already connected to certain communities, international communities, are better prepared. They already gained the right skills to operate in the new normal that we all need to go into. So that's what my first observation would be. We need to be all convinced that we need to change and that it's not a temporary thing. And of course, teachers, if they are really honest, they see that things have changed in the classroom, but also they have realized in many cases that it's really absurd to make a copy of their former way of teaching when students are at home remotely. Students are not at home waiting all day in front of the screen to listen to the teacher and to be ready for the teacher as they would be in the classroom. So you see some changes coming up so that in many schools, more advanced teachers give trainings for their colleagues, and that's really nice to see. But I repeat again, it's more than just knowing all the buttons of a certain platform. It's also about digital didactics and coming to the new paradigm. And that need to be there from the very start, I would say, when we try to, let's say, share digital literacy in all schools. And it's also a matter of bringing this to the level of students as well. As I said, some teachers already have brought their students to this type of learning even before COVID. And they are now, let's say, in an advanced position to survive and to make the best out of this. So I would consider the whole crisis now as a kind of positive wake-up call for all stakeholders to tell that digital literacy is really important, and it should be core of our citizenship in general, I would say. So that's more or less it. It's a mindset that we need to come up with, but I have the impression that many teachers take the steps, but the danger is that when we solve the crisis, they would tend to go back to the old paradigm, and hopefully we will get something out of it for the rest of our times.
Yeah, thank you. I think we don't want to go back to the old times. I think it's more about implementing what we have achieved right now and what we have experimented during the last couple of months. And as you said before, the competence acquisition is not like a simple switch, it's a process. So, and we need students to be actively involved in that process. Tina, I'd like to hand over to you. What are your thoughts on the question of skills and competence acquisition?
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Alexander, and thanks, Bart, for the great basis. I think it's very important. There are so many tools out there. We as teachers are struggling. Our students are struggling. I think it cannot be about, 10 tools and where the buttons are. What we want to achieve is that using the tools becomes second nature. It's not about the tools, it's about leveraging the opportunities the tools give us to all learn better and reach a better pedagogy. So for instance, even digital feedback. You can, while you're in class, you can have your students give you feedback in real time on whether they need a break, whether they enjoy what you're talking about, whether they can follow you. I honestly believe that if we jointly come together, and I do that with my students in higher education, we try a new tool every now and then, we figure out what can it deliver and what can it not do. And at times it's very frustrating. We try to do something and then realize, oh, okay, well, it doesn't work with that tool. I'm sure you can all relate to it, but it's a big experiment. And I think we just have to all kind of be a bit honest and say, okay, we don't know it all, let's jointly figure it out. And I can see my students really picking up things that they realize work for them, and then also further using them in their workplaces. So I work with a lot of students that also work and study at the same time. And it's really about learning by doing, not learning about a specific tool, but have a fun project, do a hackathon, do a joint research project, do connect students with other students for a marketing case study. Why use a paper case study? Connect students in India, sorry, big India fan, connect students in Germany and actually have them interact. A paper cannot give you a real sense of what a supermarket in India looks like, but now you can actually ask an Indian student and he can even mobile first take you to the supermarket. I mean, there's really, I think it all becomes second nature eventually, and I don't think we'll be able to go back to how things were, luckily. So I really think, yeah, we just need to kind of dive in, experiment, and jointly develop what works and what doesn't work. And at times it's just one tool works for the word cloud, but there's another tool that has a better poll. So, I mean, it's as complicated as that. There's not one tool that does it all. We just really need to try them all out and jointly figure out what works.
Thank you very much, Tina. As I learned from you, technology is already there. We should use it. We should experiment with the different tools, and we should empower teachers and students to just start collaborating. So go out, start, and just begin. The first step is always the most problematic one. So I'd like to hand over to Sarah. Would you like to share your ideas with us?
So yeah, I think that for many, many years, I would say especially at the institutional level, many people work on the assumption that students inherently acquire certain soft skills just by engaging in certain activities, and that these so-called digital natives, and I don't like that term, digital natives, but that are, you know, students who are 20-year-olds or whatever, just know how to use technology. And I think COVID, those of us who have been working with technology for many years have known that isn't true, but COVID has really proven that that isn't the case. And I think it's so for example, in my case, it really is virtual exchange, so bringing people together to collaborate across borders. And it's experiential learning. So it's you know, basically in some ways what Tina was saying, they learn how to do certain things by doing them and by having to deal with these issues that come up. And it's also revealed, you know, I teach engineering students, and it's revealed how little they actually know about how to use collaborative technologies. So maybe they know how to use their social media tools, but not necessarily how to effectively use other tools for study and work online. And the other thing, I think, and this, you know, goes back in some ways to what Bart was saying, that is my big concern, is that though I think COVID in some ways, for some communities of people, has been a catalyst towards more digital education, other people, I would say especially teachers and lecturers who received absolutely no support on how to effectively teach online and just transferred what they would do in the classroom to an online environment, are actually turned off by this kind of activity, right? Because, and as are their students, because sitting and listening to an hour-and-a-half lecture online is not effective online learning. And so, my concern is that there be an effort to kind of at institutional levels, regardless of what level we're talking about, to provide training and support from a pedagogical point of view to show these teachers how these digital tools can allow you to do things that maybe you couldn't even do in the classroom, right? Like collaborating with somebody who actually lives in India, for example. Or, every student has a different learning style, and I found that, some students during our Zoom lessons are actually much more outgoing than they are in the classroom. And so, there are a lot of things to consider, that it's not just about the tools, it's about how you use the tools and for what purpose. But if we're not teaching people how to do that, then the community remains kind of restricted to this group of enthusiasts instead of reaching a broader audience.
Thank you very much. So train the trainers and providing more formats to qualify our teachers and our students to better interact with others via digital tools is very much important. I'd like now to move a little bit forward to the next topic. And as I mentioned in my introduction, I would like to learn a little bit more about your concrete pedagogical concepts that you are using within your projects. So you are involved. So yes, and that's Jana. Would you like to go first?
I would actually also like to say something about training teachers, because the problem is not that they're not curious about things. The problem is also that so many things are forbidden, and that we have to grade the kids in the end. And that is not compatible with curiosity at all. So I just wanted to add that because that was kind of part of the last topic.
So we also have structural limitations to keep that in mind, and maybe to change the formal rules to really implement better pedagogical concepts and to have this freedom and space for experimentation. So, but coming back to my question, what are your concrete pedagogical concepts that you are using within your project, the eTwinning context? Would you like to share some thoughts with us, Jana?
I have many eTwinning projects. So maybe I'll share my newest one. So in our newest eTwinning project, we actually go beyond Europe, and we started a project with India, and is kind of the first virtual exchange that is also being sponsored by the Pedagogischer Austauschdienst, because they just started to allow virtual exchanges, and we are sort of the first group to actually start. And what we are doing is we are trying to connect to teachers from our newly found partner school, and we are asking many subjects to participate in order to really connect and to spread collaboration throughout the school. So, for example, I teach French, and my colleague in India teaches German, and the kids just started to learn the second new language. And this is where we create visuals, for example, photo stories, where we actually use them in French first, and then we use the visuals, so the photos, to put new audio on them. So our German kids will do very easy dialogues for the Indian kids and exchange the photo stories and teach each other their language using that. And that is a lot of fun.
Thank you. What are your good practice examples, Bart?
Well, in fact, I would like to say that all those ideas that we share now are in fact not really new. They were there already before the COVID crisis. But now it becomes clear that those ideas that maybe were shared with, let's say, a minority are now the key answer to the problem. And of course, there are quite a lot of things, but one thing I would like to stress is the quote that we need to avoid sameness. There is not one size that fits all. So we need to promote personalized learning, because now it has become clear that inequality between students when they are at home, for instance, is really an issue. But even when they are in the classroom, it is something that we need to stress, that we are all different. But we can still reach the goal. And when I invite teachers coming to the future classroom, I often show a picture of a young girl climbing a climbing wall, and the girl is held with a rope with a teammate for the safety. And according to me, this picture expresses quite well what I want to say. The girl climbing to the top is well aware of the goal. She needs to go to the top, of course, but there are many different tracks that she can choose from. And together with a teammate, they come to a kind of strategy to come there. And this picture is something that I really would like to keep also for the difficult situation that we are in now, that we still want our learners to be climbers of the wall, taking their own route to the top together with a teammate and doing in their own personal way. So according to me, giving choice, providing choice to show their learning is a key element now that we need to, let's say, implement in all stages that we are in now. So that's just one of the ideas that I would like to promote here. Giving choice and promote personalized learning.
Mm-hmm. I like your image that learners are climbers on the wall, and also thank you very much for putting light on the digital divide. So that's could also be very problematic and need to be addressed. So unfortunately, we are running a little bit out of time, so we have to come to our final round of statements. So we could spend here, I think, hours to talk about our different projects and how to engage people into our virtual exchanges. But what I'd like to ask you now is, what do you want the audience to take away from this panel and back into their international collaborations? And please keep it short, just 1 minute each. And I'd like to start with Sarah.
Okay, I'll combine what I would have said to the previous question to my closing statement, that the primary pedagogy for virtual exchange is connecting people. And this student who spoke from ESU, I think it was ESU in the closing, in the previous panel, talked about the social aspect of online learning. And virtual exchange is really about bringing people not only to learn together, but to connect with one another. And there are many people who thought, I think for many years, that virtual could not be real. And maybe in some ways, COVID has helped change that to a certain degree. But I'll just end with a student who said to me in a virtual exchange during the first COVID lockdown in Italy, which was pretty serious. And she said that she was so happy with the virtual exchange because it was the only human contact she was getting. And so I just want to say that the virtual is real if the pedagogy is set up the right way, and that it can really be used to connect people to get to know one another and learn from one another.
Indeed, virtual exchange is a reality, and there is obviously a human dimension. So, Bart, what's your closing statement?
Yeah, it's about the same what I said before. We are in this together. It's teaching and learning are not solitary things, but they are social things. And I would say, as a final comment, we should give the young people the education they deserve. It's not about surviving. And of course, well-being and safety especially are very important in these days. But it's about the quality of learning again. It's about empowerment for the future. And we should keep that in mind. It's not about surviving. We need to think about their future, and we give them, we should bring them the opportunity that they build the skills to be empowered for the rest of their lives.
Thank you. Tina, what's your statement?
Mm-hmm. I think we've all already learned a lot in the last couple of months, and we've already achieved a lot. But I think we can do even more if we do it together. So I would like to highlight the collaborate part. You can only do so much as an individual. If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. I encourage my students to participate in hackathons. But as a teacher, I also participate. I don't think that I don't have anything new to learn. So I would say to everyone, whether you're a student, a teacher, retired, or doesn't matter who you are and what your background is, where you are, just go collaborate, experiment, and connect with other people. You will be very positively surprised. I can promise you that.
Thank you very much. And Tina, now it's your turn. Jana, sorry. Jana.
That's okay. I completely agree with Tina, and I'll just cut it very short because I know we're running out of time. And I'd like to emphasize again that curiosity is key for everybody, for the teachers, the students, but also the parents.
Okay, thank you very much. We can do so much more if we do it together. I'd really like that to end our panel discussion, and I have to thank you very much. Let's keep in touch. Let's spread the word, not the virus, and get people infected by virtual exchanges. And I wish you the best of luck and take care. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
So, Alexander, I'm going to take over, okay?
Wunderbar.
Thank you very much, Alexander Knoth. Thank you also to all the panelists. That was quite impressive.